Welcome to this week's episode of the Liberty Unveiled podcast, formerly the Teshua Unveiled podcast. I am your host, Brad Hopp, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Pastor Sam Jones. Together, we are unveiling liberty one episode at a time. We'll be discussing the latest in trafficking news, insider stories from those being delivered, and studying the Founders Bible to learn how to return America to sanity and true freedom. Our sponsor for today's show is Teshua Tea Company. Visit TeshuaTea.com or DeliveranceTea.com. Well, hi guys, welcome to the Liberty Unveiled podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hopp, and as you can tell, Pastor Sam was able to be here this week, so he and Miss Sarah came over and brought the kids, and you guys have been over here last night and today, and I heard you had lots of sleep.
Yeah, well, I mean...
I think an hour and a half.
Yeah, about an hour and a half, yeah, and wasn't straight either, so... kids in a hotel room, that was... Somebody should have told us, like, little kids in a hotel, they should have been like, you're not going to sleep.
No. They had a challenge. I heard that Henry and Thomas were having a challenge to see who could wake up each other.
Yeah, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It was kind of fun. At one point in time, so there's the bed, and then we also are in a little bit of a suite that's not really a suite, though. It's all one room. Mm-hmm. They say it's a suite, but... Mm-hmm. A suite means multiple rooms. There wasn't multiple rooms, but there was a bunk bed there, and but the kids are still young enough where they're in pack and plays, and so we put the 2-year-old next to the bunk bed. Mm-hmm. So there we are, and he's kind of afraid or something, not happy, and so I go and lay with him, and I'm laying on the bunk bed right next to him. And, I start to doze off just a little bit, and he didn't.
You didn't appreciate that?
Well, he got up and he starts. I feel all of a sudden the blankets being taken from me. He starts pulling the blankets off of me while he's in the pack and play, and I'm on this. Oh man.
That's always the worst. I have nights where sometimes I'll be out on a trip, and I'll just get to the hotel and try to go to sleep, and it doesn't happen when I'm at home, but sometimes when I'm in this strange hotel. I don't know if it's that I had coffee too late at night or something, but it just lay there until like 3 a.m. or something. You're half asleep, you're not asleep, but you're not awake. You're just kind of there, and you're just like, I want to go to sleep.
Yeah. So, well, and then you've kind of been all over the country, like literally.
Yeah, literally. I literally covered the U.S. from Florida to Massachusetts to Oregon or Washington this week.
Yeah, so I mean, you're in both corners on both coasts. So this could be an interesting podcast.
It could be very. Fortunately, we both had some coffee today, so it's been,
that's what we have here. Is
mine's gone already.
Oh, yours is gone already. I was still saving it for the podcast, but that's okay. I'll drink it quick.
So we're drinking some of the Teshua coffee and stuff, and one thing I want people to understand on the coffee, this coffee actually comes from a friend of ours, a missionary friend of ours down in Thailand. We're still working on getting the Pura coffee out of Asia, in the country that Andrew works in and stuff, but
in this coffee, man, it's smooth.
It is. It's very smooth. It's a very good quality coffee and stuff, and the thing that I want people to understand is that I roast it on demand, so it's always fresh roasted. I mean, so when somebody orders from us, I roast it that day and ship it out that day, and so you're getting it within 24 to 48, maybe 72 hours of the time it was roasted. So that's one of the big things about the coffee and stuff. So,
I mean. If you're somebody like me who's used to drinking, Folgers or Hy-Vee brand even sometimes, this is a huge upgrade in just the quality of coffee because it does like it's bitter in the sense that it's coffee and it's black coffee, right. So it's got the taste, but it's not the harsh ness to it.
Well, and you also notice a little bit of sweetness to it too, and a little bit of that fruit note to it. Is the thing I like about the Thai coffee because it has a little bit of the bitter, but not near what you would get. And a lot of it depends on how you brew it too. And we were using a French press today and stuff, and I had actually ground it a little finer than I should have. I should have ground it on like more of a medium grind for a French press, and I actually did it on like extra fine. So maybe a lot.
Well,
coarse.
I see. I mean, if there's a little bit of extra grounds in there,
Yeah.
that could be useful for me today to stay awake. So
I
I had to text you before we got here. I said, hey, maybe today would be a good day to
talk about the coffee.
to talk about the coffee. So
Yeah. So anyway, so welcome to the show, and on the show, for those of you that are not familiar with the show, that are just joining us, we talk about the girls that my business partner Andrew and the team are rescuing out of trafficking. We talk about some of the latest in trafficking news and stuff, and I don't often want to share too many stories about trafficking news, just because it's we want to talk about the work that's going on with the girls and how they're recovering and how they're being healed and delivered and set free and stuff. And we want to bring hope to the situation. And it's important that you understand, though, that it is a worldwide problem. Out of the 4 million people that are trafficked every year, 1 million of them are kids. So it's a major problem.
mm-hmm.
And so people need to understand that it's there. You can go out and find any number of well-connected, well-heeled people, you might say, in Hollywood and stuff that have evidence of the trafficking rings, that involve very high-power people and stuff. And
well, and I trafficking happens to people, not just to children and in younger people, but also all ages and really from all different backgrounds. We did a trafficking training, and of course, Teshua, of course, is a lot more focused on communist Asia there.
Right.
But in the United States, trafficking, in the training we did, the person mentioned, and this is somebody who works with people who've been trafficked quite a bit in things like that, and a lot on the recovery side. And she was talking that her oldest victim was like in her 80s, and her youngest victim was actually like 8 months old, which is just absolutely disgusting to think about that. But I mean, it's somebody that affects all of it. And it was also, she told a story of some children who were doctors' children, and it was the idea of the trusted family friends who were babysitting, would babysit, oh, hey, can you watch our kids for the weekend while we go out of town? And during that time, they would go and traffic them and threaten them with, if you tell somebody your dad's going to lose his job, kind of a thing. And I mean, so it's across the gambit, this stuff. I mean, trafficking knows no biases.
Right. Well, and people wonder, Brad, why are you so conservative on and so adamantly opposed to illegal immigration? My motivation for being opposed to illegal immigration is probably not what people would think. It comes from the standpoint of, for years I have said, if somebody comes up here illegally, there is a very high chance that they are going to be able to be trafficked in some way, size, shape, or form, because they dare not say anything as to...
They can be controlled so much easier.
They can be controlled so much easier, especially if it's a young lady. She might be required to...
Well, unfortunately, a young man really is.
Yeah.
The preteen boy, that's a pretty rough...
Yeah. And they might be required to be kind of a little crass about it, to service the boss, so to speak, or to, well, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to turn you into DHS or whatever, or not in DHS, but ICE, and so you open up so much of a possibility there, and you end up hurting so many people because you put them into a position where they have no recourse to defend themselves. They have no way of being able to protect themselves.
Right.
And so my standpoint on it is, open up legal means. I wouldn't open up the floodgate, but I would open up, create a more viable solution for being able to come here legally. I mean, the country is made up of immigrants. Mm-hmm. And I have no problem with that. I mean, my grandparents or great-grandparents were immigrants, so I have no problem with that. But do it legally. Because when you do it legally, you have a lot more footing, and you can say, hey, I'm being injured or taken advantage of or abused, and you have a voice then.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that a lot of times people don't think about. They don't understand. There really is a major danger for the person themselves who are coming in illegally because of the threats, and people can hold that over their head. And I mean, I've heard stories of now this isn't with trafficking, but something that goes kind of along with this would be meat packing plants. And I've heard stories from people who work at meat packing plants and have told me, yeah, especially when the whole COVID thing came out, of, you don't go to the doctor, you don't get tested. Because if you do, especially with contact tracing, well, they're going to find out you're illegal. Or the bosses, because they don't want the plant shut down, will tell them, if you do this,
right,
we're going to fire you or send you back to Mexico or wherever it was from. Because it's also not true to always say Mexico. Actually, there's a lot of illegal immigrants from Africa right now in the United States, which is kind of an interesting thing. But or people who have their visas expired is maybe another way to look at that. A lot of times maybe they didn't initially come over illegal, but have stayed too long and didn't get their paperwork renewed.
Right. Well, you look at Russia. I mean, Russia in a lot of the Soviet bloc countries, a lot of times people are promised jobs, and they go and they take these jobs and they go off to a foreign area, and they're not there necessarily per se legally, but they're promised a job and come here and blah blah blah, and they get there and well, it's not really a job, it's prostitution, and they're all of a sudden they're being trafficked because they're alone. They've removed their support network. They've removed themselves from their protection. They've removed themselves from their that community, and because they've removed themselves from all this support network, and this is kind of one of the reasons that I was listening to a totally different subject area, but there was a guy I was listening to, and he was talking about why he doesn't build a bug-out bag, or why he doesn't carry a bug-out bag anymore. And this guy's former military. He was special ops. He was, I think, a SEAL even. I don't remember. But he's like, I don't carry one now because he goes, one of the things that I've realized is by bugging out, I remove myself from my network and my support. Now, if everybody else that I'm around gets killed and worst case scenario, then yeah. But he says, as long as I have people around me, I have that community and I have that network and I have that support there, and we're stronger when we have that support around us. And
well, God put it this way, it's not good for man to live alone. We're not designed to be isolated. In fact, I think it's Proverbs 18:1 talks about how it's foolish to go and isolate yourself and things like that. We're designed to have fellowship and community. And by the way, that reflects God, because we don't serve a God who is just simply one. There is one God, but it's the idea of there is a relationship between Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. There is a relationship there, and so that can be reflected from us to other people. In amongst that, I mean, that's part of reflecting who God is as Christians, and so that's just kind of.
Well, and it goes along with what we're seeing with the girls, because we've got the girls into the rescue homes. We have 2 rescue facilities now. We were able to secure a second one back in October, and 2 of the girls have that were earlier rescuees have now stepped up into the place of being house moms.
How cool is that?
Yeah, and that's awesome. And part of the magic that's happening is simply that we have a long-term rescue facility, and this is one of the issues that we face in America is we don't have a lot of, we have halfway houses and stuff like that, but they're not, a lot of times they're not set up on a long-term stay basis. America has really failed in a lot of the trafficking aspect, simply because we don't have enough rescue facilities, we don't have enough beds, we don't have enough
Commitment, really.
enough commitment to it, and so because of that, we don't have the support network for those people that really need it and stuff, and that's where what we're seeing with Andrew and the team and stuff. The girls come in and they're able to not only hear the gospel, but they're able to see it, because they're seeing girls that have been trafficked and have become Christians and now are living a new life, and they're able to see the transformation there. And because they're able to see that transformation, it makes it so much easier for them to, oh, I want this too, and so it makes it easier for them to heal. It makes it easier for them to come to Christ. It makes it easier just all the way around. They're able to work together because they each understand where the others were at and stuff and are, and so they're able to work together with it. And that's where the community comes in, because they have that support network. They have something that they haven't had in a long time.
Right.
When you think about traffickers, what is one of the top ways that traffickers do their trafficking? They remove a young lady from her support network. They shut her off from her family, her friends. When they're grooming them, it's I want you to be all about me, and I don't want you to hang out with your family and friends. And that's one of the big signs of trafficking. You can watch it and so that's something that I want people to be aware of. If you start seeing a family member withdrawing or being drawn away by somebody, and they're not wanting that that family member to socialize with you anymore and stuff, be watching.
Well, and isolation is a necessary component in controlling people. And even in Ecclesiastes, it gives us this principle where it talks about, how can two walk together unless they be agreed? But then it talks about how woe to him who falls in the day when he's alone. And then it goes on, it says, a three-strand cord is not easily broken.
Right.
And that idea of, people being together is something that's good. It's helpful. And I hate to bring it back to COVID, but you think about just what you're saying. It's exactly right. Isolation is one of those things, major things, signs of trafficking and things like that. But it's because it's easier to control somebody when you isolate them and you strip that away from them. Well, that's kind of what our government's doing to us.
Right.
And so, that's one thing to really stand up against and to stand for is community. Not communism, but community, biblical community. And so that's something that's, I think, just absolutely vital. We're not designed to be isolated. We're not designed to be alone. And people are easily manipulated and changed and marginalized. And that's exactly what they do to these young women. You know what? Pull them out of their family, pull them out of their value system, pull them out of all these things. And then, of course, they treat them like trash. And then they'll feed them, or they'll give them something like that, and then they'll follow. It's much like I'm trying to think of who the wicked ruler was, but it was when I tell the story, you might remember it. He would go and take the feathers off the chicken, and then go and feed the chicken. And so he'd go and do this. I can't remember who it was, and so I don't want
to. Biblical story?
No.
No,
I can't remember if it was Hitler or if it was Mussolini or if it was
Pol Pot.
Pol Pot or the Russian Stalin. I can't remember which one it was, but it's one of those guys. But anyway, they would go and do that, but then they would go and feed the chickens, and the chickens would come and love these people, even though
they're pulling feathers out.
Right. And it's because even though they could do whatever they wanted, well, it's because the chickens became dependent upon them. And that's a lot of what happens with this trafficking, because one of the big things I always wondered before starting to look into trafficking or anything like that is like, why don't they just leave?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of times they can't. It's the only thing they know. It's the only thing that they've ever done. They've never been shown another way. They think that this is, in some ways, normal. And plus they're dependent, and so you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. You don't really know where you're going. You don't have any other skills. You don't really have any true opportunities. I'm really excited to look at what we're going to be looking at here, either this episode or next episode, because I think it really gets into this with whose job is it then to reach out to the poor and needy. And the problem is that it's ultimately not the government's job.
Right.
It's ultimately the people, and that's what Teshua is doing, is going and reaching out to the people and helping them out.
So going along that lines, because one of the things that you just mentioned is communism, and when we look at this, a lot of times people say, well, it's the government should be helping these people out. No, it's not the government's job. It's our job. It's the church's job.
Right.
And that's where we have gotten so far.
Well, the government should help out in this sense. They should. The government has two main obligations. One is to protect the innocent, and the other one is to punish the wicked. And they protect the innocent by punishing the wicked. And so, if they rightly punish the wicked, that does help out. But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about helping people out. We're talking about the compassion. And the problem is that a government is just a system of functions and orders. It doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have a personality, and so it actually cannot be compassionate. And so when we, especially as Christians, when we fall into this idea of like socialism and communism that doesn't believe in individual private property, well, we can't go and give something that we don't own technically.
Right.
And so we're actually hurting our ability to actually fulfill the biblical mandate to give. And then when we go and have the government do it, become lazy and have the government do it, well, the government can't show compassion because that's the individuals inside the government might be able to, but the government itself is just a system. It's just an organization. It's just orders and systems and things like that. And so they can't actually show compassion.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, was when you have a bureaucracy that really is, you have a higher opportunity for the people that are working in that bureaucracy to only be there for the paycheck, and only be there for the government benefits, and only be there for the retirement package and all this stuff. And so, really, how many times, I mean, it's almost become cliche. Next, the DOT officer or the DMV officer. Next, Bueller. They don't care. They're not there to be compassionate. They're not there. They're there because, and I'm not bashing on all of them, but understand that you have a higher opportunity for people to not be motivated by the cause, but just to be motivated by, I can collect a paycheck and I really don't care about the people that I'm working with.
Well, girls who've been trafficked, or guys for that matter, but anybody who's been trafficked doesn't need to be treated like a number in order to heal.
Right.
And that's something that I think is really important because they've already been dehumanized. They need to be rehumanized.
Right.
Is what they need. And the best way to do that is, of course, through the principles found in God's Word, and that's what Teshua is about, in this restoring and deliverance and things like that, and of course, ultimately, the power of grace and the gospel. I was thinking about this while you were talking, because you were talking about like halfway houses and different things like that, and they're not committed and things like that, but the big issue is that they focus in on rehabilitation. They don't focus on healing. And the thing is that you can rehabilitate somebody with a 15-step program over 6 months, and it can be like clockwork. But we don't know how deep their wounds are, and wounds take various times to heal, even the same wound, because of different people. And all these people have been hurt and wounded greatly, and they need God's word to really heal them.
Right. Well, I think about a friend of mine that was he was raped by a male cousin when he was a kid, and grew up in a very narcissistic home. His mom is all about her, and just very narcissistic would be the proper term, I guess. And the thing is that he, it was years that it took him to come to a place to say, I'm okay with not being okay, and to come to that place where he'd start to heal and start to realize that there was wounds that were really deep. And it didn't take him 1 or 2 or 5 minutes or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months. It took him several years. Mm-hmm. And I've he and I are good friends and stuff, and so I've helped him through this over the years, but it's taken him time. It's taken time for God to do that healing work and that healing power. And you talked about rehumanizing them, and you talked about communism, and that's one of the things, the next sections that we're going to get into here is talking about tax wars, and one of the reasons I'm so adamantly opposed to communism is because it dehumanizes people.
Right.
It takes people, and if you look at the Soviet bloc nations, one of the reasons they have so much of a problem with trafficking and stuff is because they devalued human beings so much. That's one of the reasons that for example, China has such a problem with not valuing life and the one-child policy that they had for so long, because they're a communist government, and people under a communist government, people are not human. They are part of the commune or the machine.
Right.
And that's the thing that we need to understand is, it sounds all good and ethereal and woo, oh, lovey-dovey, everything's gonna be equal. Well, that's not the case. When you have communism, you're not a human. You're a cog in the wheel of a machine. Mm-hmm. And America has experienced the same thing, but ours is a little bit different. I always call it corporate communism. Mm-hmm. And we have this weird corporate communistic dichotomy going on, where you have you're a part of the corporation, and the corporation is the thing that runs. It's the same basic idea that you're not. The corporation can spit you out anytime they want.
Right.
You're not really a part of anything. You're just a piece of the machinery to build the corporate structure. But that's the same value, the same value system and the same ideal behind communism. And right. That's why we have this weird dichotomy going on of corporate communism. And we think we live in a capitalistic country, but really we live in a corporate communistic country.
Yeah, for the most part, we definitely aren't really
we're headed that way.
Yeah, right. That's the direction we're pointing at and running towards and things like that. And it's interesting too when you think about it. Of course, the greatest injustice today, in my view, is abortion. Mm-hmm. And you think about how that's always pushed is that they're dehumanized. They say, they're not babies. They're just a clump of cells. They're just this, or they're not alive, or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And of course, it goes against science. It goes against all these different things. But the three main arguments for abortion are they're not alive, mm-hmm. They're not human, which is ridiculous because they're certainly not a dog or a cat. I've never seen anybody. It's a species argument. But the third one is that they're dependent. They're dependent,
or that they're not contributing to society.
Right. Which I sit out there and I'm going, well, I don't want you to be consistent about this, but let's think about that. And of course, if you were to go and say, well, anybody who's dependent upon the government and not contributing to society doesn't have the right to live, I think that a lot of people would get upset with that, and rightly so.
But that's what they're doing with the COVID patients, where they're taking them and putting them into the nursing homes, because the nursing home patients, and we were talking that before we started recording, we were talking about there's a video going around it's a podcast where Dr. Lee Merritt from Nebraska was talking about this, and she's part of and just a little FYI, if you guys haven't heard of this group, it's a group that I've recently become familiar with. I'm sure there's people that were a lot more familiar with it a lot sooner than me, but America's Frontline Doctors. If you have not had a chance, go on to their website and look them up, because these are doctors that are standing on the front line and saying, no, what's going on right now with COVID is wrong, and you're not being told the truth, and we've done the research, and people with a lot more accolades and a lot more letters and names behind their name than I have, or I've ever thought about having.
More letters in the alphabet, and more degrees than a thermometer.
Yeah, exactly. You were saying, yeah. And so Dr. Lee Merritt was talking about this stuff, and one of her points is, just slipped my name, or Cuomo from New York. He started putting the COVID patients into the nursing home. Well, basically what he's doing is trying to kill off the old people, or the elderly, and so, it's this idea that they don't hold any value. But what does the scripture say? The scripture goes, honor the hoary head,
right,
and go to the ones that are older and the Ancient of Days ones that know things, because they know how to handle stuff. And so when we kill off the elderly, because we don't value their humanity, we lose so much of our own history and our own knowledge base that we're cutting ourselves off from
right
a lot of wisdom. You know.
Well, should we? Where can people find this coffee and tea?
Oh, go to teshuatea.com, so TESHUAHTEA.com, or deliverancetea.com. So I made it easy for everybody, so you can just go to deliverancetea.com, and you can check out the website there. We have all the tea and the coffee, and we have some samplers. I don't have any samplers done up for the coffee yet. I'm not sure I'm going to, but we do have the samplers of the different teas and stuff. So
you're not going to want a sample of the coffee anyway. Really, probably right with the tea, you're probably going to want to go ahead and buy the big one. But people in America are probably more familiar with the coffee flavor than they are tea flavor, so it makes sense to do samples of tea. And of course, tea can be a dramatic taste difference between the teas. Coffee, there could be a big quality difference. There could be a big taste difference too. If you're drinking like Ethiopian coffee and stuff like that, that's a lot more earthy tones. And
it
things
just
like
has
that.
a different flavor profile. Certain areas. Coffee is one of those weird things. That's kind of, and I'm not a wine drinker at all. I mean, you never have been, but you always hear the wine gurus and stuff, and they talk about how. This wine comes from this area of France, and there's more slate in the soil over here, and so it has this. It expresses that in this way, and you come over to this area of France, and it has or California has a different type of soil, or and they can really kind of pick out what area of the world it's come from, if they're really skilled at it, just based on.
The taste,
the taste of it, and the flavor profile and stuff. So, talking about tea and stuff, and we're talking about that ties into the Boston Tea Party, and what was that over? It was over taxes, and so I thought I would just segue from the tea right into the Boston Tea Party and into the tax wars.
Yeah, and I mean, what a that. It's one of those that really hurts when I think about the Boston Tea Party, because I'm going, I just dumped all that good tea. No, it was something that was necessary, definitely, and Samuel Adams really led that. And one thing people don't know about Samuel Adams, it's about the only thing you think about Sam Adams, is the beer.
Right.
He actually was I think the president of like a Bible society, and in all kinds of stuff. He was really just a solid Christian, and really on that idea of promoting the Christian ideas, and so that's pretty interesting. And another interesting thing is, of course, he was good friends with his cousin John Adams, but they were actually on other sides of the political debate quite a bit. But yet a lot of times stuff got done because they could work together because of their friendship. You had Sam Adams, who's a lot more of the anti-federalist, and John Adams, who's a lot more of the federalist. But anyway, let's get into tax wars. So this one is right around Deuteronomy chapter 14. And if you don't have Founder's Bible, we would suggest you get it. You can find them, I believe, on Amazon, but I'm sure you can get them straight from the American Heritage Wall Builders. Sorry,
Wall Builders.
Wall Builders.
Isn't it wallbuilders.org, I think?
I think it's .org, yeah.
I think it's .org, too.
So look up David Barton, Wall Builders. If you search that, whether you're using DuckDuckGo or Google, it should come right up. So,
I know this is not a paid sponsorship. I did ask them. I said, can we have a coupon code or a link or something? And they just said they don't do that. So, but I really appreciate the Bible, and I really appreciate what David Barton and those guys have done. So I'm, more than happy to talk about their Bible because it's so well done.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But anyway, Deuteronomy chapter 14, if you have your Founder's Bible and you're wanting to follow along, but we'll start off here with the tax wars. It says, when God established civil laws for his people, he required of them, you shall tithe all produce from what you sow, which comes out of the field every year. Deuteronomy 14:22. The tithe was 1/10, or 10%, of the annual income every citizen, and it functioned as a tax or levy on the people. From the proceeds of that tax, officials were paid and social programs operated. So see Deuteronomy 26:12. Frequently across the Bible, the requirement to pay a tithe is repeated. Significantly, under this biblical plan, everyone paid the tax at the same rate. Whether someone was rich or poor, the percentage was the same. If a man made $1 million, his tithe or his tax was $100,000, and if a man made $100, his tithe or his tax was $10. Under this uniform tax, the rich paid more than the poor in actual amount, but each was treated exactly the same under the law, which is the definition of justice. As Jesus affirmed this impartiality, it is a reflection of the character and nature of God. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Matthew 5:45. Evil or good, just or unjust, rich or poor, God was impartial. The biblical system of taxation is known as capitalization taxation, or capitation taxation, which is an assessment levied by the government upon a person at a fixed rate, regardless of income or worth. This system was placed into the U.S. Constitution in Article 1, Section 9, and it says this: no capitation or other direct tax shall be laid up unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. The founders required the federal taxes be applied evenly to every person, divided them equally based on the census population numbers. The Constitution likewise required the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excesses, but all duties, imposts, and excesses shall be uniform throughout the United States. Article 1, Section 8. Now, this is describing what we would call today the fair tax.
Or the flat tax.
Yeah. Is it the fair tax? I think because isn't the...
Well, if it was distributed, if it was even above everybody, and it was kind of like based on the 10% tithe, then it would be a flat tax. It's just
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And you're not taxing things that are good. In other words, you're
taxing expenditures, not income.
Right.
So that's how some states don't have income tax, and Iowa's not one of them. We have we're like 4th or 6th in the nation in highest income tax. But a lot of a lot of states, or a few states anyway, don't have income tax. And some people will go, well, how do they make their money? Well, they have sales tax. And it's a little bit higher sales tax. So people go, well, that's not fair. Well, actually,
It's very fair.
very fair because you get taxed upon what you spend, what you
Right.
choose to spend. So you don't have to pay a dime of taxes if you choose not to spend anything.
Right. But you have to eat, and everybody's going to pay the same on their groceries, and if you want to go out and buy $1 million McLaren, go out and buy the $1 million McLaren, but you're going to pay 7% or 10% or whatever the tax rate is for that state based on that vehicle purchase and stuff. And so there's an old expression of whatever you tax you get less of. And that's why the states went to taxing cigarettes, because they wanted to have less smoking. So they put, I think it's like $2 or $3 I don't even know, but I think it's like $2 or $3 a pack on cigarettes or something for tax now.
Yeah.
It's just outrageous.
Well, and that's what they're going to be doing to ammo, is what it looks like here pretty soon. Is what it sounds like, in buying guns, and they want less guns and bullets out there, which is it just kind of goes to show you where the government is right now, which is it's unfortunate, because basically the government, what they're saying is that they don't trust their citizens.
Well, they don't trust their citizens because their citizens can't trust them.
Right.
And they know that they can't be trusted, and they know that they're in danger of hellfire and brimstone from their citizens as they continue their actions.
Well, and even worse, most of our government officials are in danger of hellfire and brimstone, literally from God and in eternity and judgment. You want me to keep going on the tax wars?
Yep.
All right. So continuing on, it says, but in the late 1800s, a dramatically different system of taxation was advocated under the rise of progressivism and post-Reconstructionism, two parallel anti-biblical paradigms that teach citizens to view themselves not as part of the country as a whole, but rather part of some group, whether black, white, brown, gay, or straight, rich or poor, young or old, union or non-union, etc. This worldview regularly pits one group against another, as when Congress passes hate crime laws protecting some groups, gays and lesbians or minorities, races such as Jews or African Americans, but not others, veterans and seniors, rather than having all laws apply equally to everyone. In the past, America was characterized by the Latin phrase on the Great Seal of the United States, e pluribus
E pluribus unum?
Yeah, there we go. I said you're going like, boy, I know this phrase, but I can't say it all of a sudden here. I need 2 hours of sleep to be able to say that, apparently. Meaning out of many, one. An expression acknowledging that although there was much diversity in America, there was a common unity that overcame all differences. But progressivism and post-Reconstructionism reverses the emphasis to become e unum pluribus, which that is out of one, many.
Right.
That's an interesting thought right there.
We've really done that. We've followed that rabbit hole all the way down, and now we have America today.
Yeah, so you have e pluribus unum, which is out of many, one, but instead we're e unum pluribus, out of one, many, and that's a really good way to describe what's happening in the United States today, because we would rather focus in on subcultures that refuse to assimilate to an American culture, instead of assimilating, becoming one, and working together towards a common goal, which is what made America very important in Western civilization, very successful. You think of all of the other civilizations throughout all history, most of them were polytheists. And so eventually, because they all worship different gods, they end up fracturing off, right? Well, the interesting thing about Western civilization is that it has the Judeo-Christian ethic. And basically, it embraces a monotheistic ethic, in basically saying that there is one standard, one God who's making one standard. And that doesn't mean everybody in the United States was Christian, per se. That's not what I'm getting at, but we generally agreed to one standard, which came from one God.
Right.
And the reality of it is that we held Christianity above other religions. It'll be really fun to get into the First Amendment and things like that. I'm sure we'll come into contact with that going through this Bible. But with that, we were able to go into unite under one banner, and though we are many, become one,
Right.
moving forward.
Right.
And if you go and you read like the Federalist Papers, the big warning that was given is that if we don't come and unite, the outside nations are going to come in, and they're going to pit us against one another, and then they're going to come in and divide and conquer. And you see that happening today, that we're being divided, and whenever we're being divided, we're going to be conquered. But it's because we do believe in e unum pluribus, this idea of out of one, many.
Right. Right. You know, and this goes back to, you know, a lot of what we've talked about previously on this episode. You know, it does.
It's strange how much it's fits in with what we talked about.
You know, and one of the things with the,
because we don't ever come into a podcast with a plan. Just so you know.
don't. But one of the things that I want people to understand is, you know, there's a difference between the idea of out of many becoming one. There's a difference between that and the idea of corporate communism. They sound, if you were to look at them in face value, they sound somewhat similar. But there's a big difference in the value of the person and the individual. One humanizes, the other one doesn't.
You bring, in e pluribus unum, you bring your identity to the table. Whereas in a corporate communism, or any communism for that matter, you leave your identity at the door, and you come in and you do exactly as what's said. But America is the idea of your identity helps shape America.
Right, and it's the idea of I'm bringing my supply for the greater good of the whole of America, and so you have this in one, the state is God, and in one, the individuals
maintain self-government.
But they bring their supply to the overall whole, but at the same time they still maintain their self-government. And it's not that the government is the all-powerful, it's that all of us working together are bringing our supply to the whole. And there's a whole difference in how you view the individual and the man, and which is more powerful, the state or the individual.
Right, and that's one of the, if I were to give a critique of pretty much of our world when it comes to political philosophy, there's really only one political philosophy that can rightly divide and objectively divide between self and civil government. Just recently, I was talking to a bunch of secular libertarians who are, obviously big self-government guys. Well, until it gets put into practice and they get scared, and then all of a sudden they're going, well, no, I think the state has a right to do that. I think the state has a right to do that. And I kind of started to chuckle because they didn't know where to draw the line. They talk about how we don't want the state to come and take our rights, and we're all about this, we're all about this, we're all about this. Well, where's that line? God's law draws a pretty good line.
Right.
Pretty defined, bold line.
Right. And this is one of the things that I talked about on one of the previous episodes, because we were looking at the Ten Commandments and how if people are not obeying the Ten Commandments, they can't be a good neighbor.
Right, exactly.
It's if you obey the Ten Commandments that now you become a good neighbor, you become somebody that can be trusted, you become somebody that can be self-governing, and you're able to be somebody that can be trusted with the things around you.
Well, what's the 10th commandment?
I don't remember right offhand. Thou shalt not lie. No.
Covet.
Covet. Yeah.
Yeah, thou shalt not covet. And what goes right along with it? Steal.
Yeah.
Right.
And all the rest of it, really.
Yeah. Well, yeah, all the rest of it. But you go and you look at it. Why is coveting wrong? Because it's not yours. It doesn't belong to you, and you don't have a right to that.
Right.
And so therefore it becomes a wrong when you lust after it.
Right.
It's not, thou shalt not covet isn't setting a goal and saying, hey, I want to go and work hard and make an exchange to go and get that. It's the idea when you look out and you say, I'm mad that that person has what I want and I wish I could have it when it's not mine.
Right.
Yeah, and I want to take it. And thou shalt not steal, of course, that. But the issue is that they're not they're blurring the line between what's yours and what's somebody else's. God's law comes in and it says, this is yours, this is theirs. And when you start to take God's law out, people want to say, well, I want to maintain my property. Well, based on what? That it's yours. Well, who says it's yours? God
really,
says it's yours in the Bible.
Yeah.
But if you take out God's law, then who's the authority saying it's yours? It's just you saying it. And then it's the biggest, if the guy's bigger and stronger than you, who's to say it ain't his?
Well, really, all other 9 of the commandments really are you could summarize them all with the 10th commandment. Because they're all, the root cause of all of them is you're coveting. You're wanting God's glory, you're wanting God's day, you're wanting, all the rest of it is really
God's glory, God's day, somebody else's wife,
somebody else's stuff.
Yeah,
the lying is perpetrated by coveting.
Yeah, somebody else's authority with children honoring your father and your mother.
Really that 10th commandment is
an encompassing one.
An all-encompassing one, So, yeah.
Should we continue on so we finish up this section here? In 1895, how was that year, by the way?
That was good.
Okay.
That was a good year.
Honor our elders.
1995, I remember. You probably don't, but I do.
My first memory was from 1995 because, I was 3. That's my first memories were when I was 3, 1995. So I remember that year. I don't know if it was a good year or not, but
it was a pretty good year.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my memories were like I almost died, so I remember being in the hospital. Yeah, so I don't know if it was a great year, but it was the year my dad got saved, so that in that sense it was great.
That's cool.
But
that's very cool.
In 1895, 3 years before Brad was born, actually.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court properly struck down that 1894 law as being a direct violation of the clear wording of the Constitution. At the same time, Supreme Court Justice Stephen Field warned that such a tax would literally change the face of America, accurately predicting this tax will be but the stepping stone to others, larger, more sweeping, till our political contest will become a war of the poor against the rich, a war constantly growing with intensity and bitterness. What famous political philosophy pits the poor against the rich? Yeah.
So they're saying, and I kind of missed this. So they're saying that in 1894, they struck down the 1894 law.
There's a reason why you're kind of missing it. I skipped over a paragraph. Maybe I should go back and read that paragraph.
Maybe you should go back and read that.
That's kind of a key paragraph. Under this approach, in 1894, Congress passed a tax that singled out the wealthy and treated them differently from others. But some citizens, retaining a biblical view, objected, as U.S. Congressman Justin Morrill, 1810 to 1898, had earlier explained, in this country we neither create nor tolerate any distinction of rank, race, or color, and should not tolerate anything else than entire equality in our taxation, and that understanding was widespread. So that's the context to what I just read. So that makes more sense. The Supreme Court then the next year struck it down.
Okay.
But
then they came back and Congress later reenacted it.
Right. Well, and the big argument that people are making is that, hey, this bill would be a dangerous slippery slope. And, the slippery slope argument is technically a logical fallacy. But the reality of it is sometimes the slope is slippery. And we do have to realize that. And so therefore it's not a fallacy when the slope actually is slippery. And so as long as it doesn't go to an absurd conclusion, it's not a fallacy.
Right.
Progressives and post-Reconstructionalists, following their defeat at the hands of the Constitution, began advocating a constitutional amendment to change the biblical approach to a non-biblical one. Under their proposal, the rich would be treated differently from the poor through the system of progressive taxation, which takes a higher proportion of large incomes than of small ones. In 1913, that proposal was ratified as the 16th Amendment to the Constitution, thus permitted the practice of uniform taxation to be replaced with progressive approach, which is what Congress now regularly and even aggressively pursues, pitting one group against the other and inciting class warfare that further divide the country. Nevertheless, America's original system of taxation treated Americans as individuals rather than as part of a group, and it allowed, figuratively speaking, for the sun to rise alike on the good and evil, and the rain to fall equally on the just and the unjust. This is just one of the many areas which the Constitution specifically incorporated biblical principles. We would do well to return to the wisdom that God established for us for how to order our society. Forsaking it only invites deconstruction.
Right.
Or destruction, not deconstruction, sorry, destruction.
Yeah.
Deconstruction too, actually, but... So I really love the way that it puts this here. I mean, we have to treat people as individuals and not as part of those subcultures or those groupings. And of course, this taxation plan is really what's created identity politics and is really a driving factor in today's political system and the evil parts of it.
Well, and that's just it. You know, when we lose that individual responsibility, then we become part of the, well, this is my clique or this is my group, and my group is special. No, we're all human beings, and we lose that idea of our humanity. I mean, yes, we need community. Yes, and I understand that, but at the same time, community is tied to individual government, self-government, in that so they're not
counterintuitive.
Yeah, I think that's the proper word that I'm looking for. They're not counterintuitive. That so we're individuals, but we are part of a community, and we work together, and we everybody has to govern themselves so that the community can work together. I've always said that the idea of a flat tax where everybody pays the equal rate, just like the tithe, is such a important idea. It allows business owners to have the money to reinvest and stuff. And so please stop by TeshuaTea.com or DeliveranceTea.com and pick up some of the products and help us support the work that the girls are doing and Andrew's doing and stuff. And so we do have some more exciting news coming up about that, but we'll share that in a future episode. So anyway, we look forward to talking to you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye. You've been listening to the Liberty Unveiled podcast, setting captives free one episode at a time. The Liberty Unveiled podcast is a part of the Unresolved Podcast Network and has been brought to you by Teshua Tea Company, TESHUAHTEA.com or DeliveranceTea.com.